Hey, Tony Gas is here. Now, listen to me. This for the men out there, and it's something that we have to think about because it's something that I've lived through, something I've experienced, and it's very unfortunate. But a lot of us, and this could apply to women as well, but it's something we need to think about, and that is what I would say an old-fashioned mindset. And so we seen things growing up, and when you grow up in certain areas, you see a relationship work a certain way, and you'll see a lot of times men be very domineering, very controlling, very, just dominant, and it's my way or the highway. And then a lot of women may become very, unhealthily submissive, or some women may stand up and push back, and then it just becomes this power struggle. But one of the things that I've realized, over time is with that mindset, what we have to understand in order to make our relationships flourish is we have to come into a place of peace and freedom. And what that means is, and my dad told me this when I was young, but I didn't really listen and I didn't really understand it at the time. Peace and freedom really means allowing someone to be who they are. And if you don't like who they are, then not being with that person. And if you can't learn to love who a person is, then you need to learn how to let go and move on. Because one of the things that happens in relationships, and it goes both ways, is a lot of times we try to change people, but people don't often change. And also, people are adults, and adults can do what they want to do, and adults have to live with the consequences of our choices. But when you try to change people, then you go into a space of control. And when you try to have control, you end up losing control. And when you lose control of a person that you're trying to control, you end up losing control of yourself. And so the mindset of a relationship where there is peace, there is freedom, and there is trust, it's almost, and maybe you've heard this term, they say give a person enough rope to where they can hang themselves or help themselves. And so a rope can be something that you pull yourself up with. A rope can be a lifesaver. It can be a safety line. Or a rope can be used to do harm to yourself. And that is why the term was coined, the phrase was coined, because we as humans need to be able to allow people to be who they're going to be, and to come to a place to say, hey, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to love you right. I'm going to treat you right. I'm going to be fair. And if you cross me, I'm done with you. So it's red pill or blue pill. You choose who you're going to be. But I'm here to let you know that I'm all in, I'm serious, and I'm not here to play games. And that is something that is extremely hard for us to do as humans. And I failed at this, just coming to a place of freedom instead of control. Instead of trying to control what a person does and control who they are. And it's the same with raising children, same with having employees, or anything. Whenever we try to control, it makes a person want to rebel even more. So if you come into the relationship and you're always checking the phone and you're always wondering and you're always questioning, it's going to make somebody want to try to figure out how to beat the game. They want to figure out how to have freedom. And one day I was talking to a gentleman, and he said something to me, and he was talking and he said, he says, kind of like with Christ. He was like, we are given full freedom to do whatever we want to do. And that freedom actually makes us come back to Christ, because we go out in the world and we do all this stuff. We get into all this sin, and then we realize that sin doesn't pay. And so with the free will, we actually put restrictions on ourselves, and we come back to Christ because we start to realize that the way of Christ is freedom. That when you can live a Christ-centered life and you have morals and you have values and you have structure, you have rules in your life, that you say, oh, I'm not going to covet. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to fornicate. I'm not going to adulterate. I'm not going to kill. And you have these things in your life. I'm going to give. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to be loving. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be understanding. When you put those things in place in your life, then you realize it creates peace and it creates freedom, because you're no longer at war with yourself, but you go into this place of functional freedom, of functional peace. And then by having guidelines to live by having structure, the more structure you have, the more liberty you have, the more freedom you have. And what I mean by that is when you have discipline and you are on top of your business, let's say if you say, hey, I'm going to save 10% of all cash that comes into my account, you actually create more freedom, because at the end of the year, you have a pool of thousands of dollars that you now can deploy and do what you wish with it. Whereas someone who thinks they have freedom and they spend 100% of what they make and then they go and get credit cards and they max that out, those of us who do that, we end up greatly restricted, because now not only did we spend 100, but we spent 120%, 130%, 150% of what we have earned. And now what we thought was freedom, oh, I could spend how I want to spend, go where I want to go, do what I want to do, actually becomes a prison of high interest rate debt. Whereas this person who had discipline and they had guidelines and they say, I'm going to save this amount, I'm going to invest this amount, I'm going to give this amount, they actually created freedom and abundance, because their investments come with compound interest. Their savings come with security and the ability to take a portion of that and deploy once they have hit their 6 months or 3 months or 12 months worth of monthly expenses saved. Then they no longer have to keep just piling money up. They can take the rest of it and invest into the stock market, invest into themselves, or they can sow into another business. And then what they give, that giving creates a mindset of abundance, but it also comes back tenfold. So now they're sowing good seeds and they're reaping a great harvest. So what looked like restriction actually produced freedom. And that's the same thing that we have to understand in our relationships. When we are in a place where, and I've experienced both sides of this, I've experienced being controlling and how that destroys a relationship, and I've experienced being trusting and creating freedom, and that created peace and happiness. Because what happens is when you aren't controlling someone and they can go and do what they want to do, they go and do it. And if they get to a place to where they're at a crossroads and they want to do something bad, they want to cheat because this person is very attractive, or this person is very successful, or this person is very charming, and they want to cheat. They come to the place and they say, well, why would I cheat when I have someone who is so loving, so supporting, so giving, so forgiving, so understanding, so trusting? Like this person over here, they look like they have it all, but as I know, the grass is not greener on the other side. So I can go and have some pleasure with this person, but then I lose something that is so rare. Because how rare is it to find a human who is truly loving and trusting and honest and just providing peace and freedom. Like, that is a diamond in the rough. And a lot of times we don't think about how priceless that is and how rare that is, and we'll take that for granted. But if you make it known who you are, where you stand, what you will and won't tolerate, now you can give peace and freedom. You can give peace and freedom, and you don't have to check phones. You don't have to double check and ask all these extra questions. You don't have to do all this. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way. So I'm not sitting high, looking low, talking down to you. I'm talking with you and letting you know that I went through this, in my life, and I had to learn the downside of being controlling and being insecure, and how it destroys a relationship from the inside out. But then on the flip side of that, being trusting and being loving and being open and free, and trusting that your person is going to reciprocate the love that you're giving, it creates so much space and freedom. So in order to do this, what we have to do is, and this is an exercise that I had to do for myself, and I had to go back and I have to look. We got to go back and you got to get to the root. You got to get to your root belief about relationships. And as you get to the root beliefs about your relationships, one of the things you see is you say, okay, what did I see? So me personally, and I'm going to go through the list and kind of help you understand. Okay, I saw my way or the highway minded men who they knew it all. They're right in everything. They don't listen to the woman. They don't ask for her opinion. They have all the answers, and it's their way or the highway. And that shaped my mentality, that the man knows it all, that the man knows best, that the man is the head, and the head means dictator. And that's not true. That's bad knowledge. Leader means servant, not tyrant. But when I looked at it, that's what I seen. Then I look over here and I see, okay, this female family member has a black eye from her husband. So that means when a man gets mad, he's allowed to punch his wife, and the wife deals with it. Then I saw this female family member have permanently disfigured eye sockets and lips, from lips being bust and eyes being punched, permanently disfigured finger from it being broken and never going to the hospital to have it splinted and put back in place. So now what that says to me is relationships are full of fights. It's full of abuse. You're not going to get along. It's going to be a lot of drama, and that's what you're going to go through. Then I'm hearing stories from my late grandmother about throwing hot grease or boiling water on a man, about biting a man's finger till it is practically bit off. And I'm like, wow, okay. So again, relationships are full of drama, full of pain, full of abuse. Then I'm sitting and I look at this aunt. She's limping into the yard and she has broken ribs, she says. And it's from being kicked by her boyfriend. So then I look and see this woman who has children, this family member who has children, go and start dating women. So then it says, when women are hurt, when women are broken, or women will be hurt and broken to the point that they will leave men alone and they will start dating women. and just trying to find peace and love. Then I see another woman, family member, who starts dating women. Then I see another woman, family member, who dates men and women and dresses with very short shorts, and her butt is hanging out the bottom, and she's always on the street corner and always outside with the boys, with the guys. And I'm like, okay. So this is what I saw. I did not see white picket fence, happy, smiling, loving couples. And I'm challenging you to go back and look at what you saw. See, sometimes you see the opposite, but you don't see conflict resolution. So we also have to read between the lines and use inference, because sometimes you can see a situation that looks perfect. I hear a lot of people say, oh, my parents have been married for 30 and 40 years and I've never seen them argue. Well, when you ask yourself, how realistic is it to believe that two humans living with each other, smelling each other's breath, looking at each other's dirty underwear, smelling each other's poop, dealing with each other's mood swings and life changes, how realistic is it for me to believe that two humans never argue? When I argue with my brother or my sister or my coworker or my best friend or my teacher, when I have had an argument with everyone in my life at some point or another, even with my mom or with my dad, how realistic is it for me to believe that my mom and dad have no problems? And some people go into the world with that mindset, and they are completely shattered when they get into a relationship and abuse pops up, control pops up, and they have no clue how to handle it. So they either miss all the red flags and then it happens, or there are no red flags and then it happens. And a lot of times, because they don't know what conflict resolution looks like, they shrink and they settle and they go into this relationship and they absolutely have the opposite of what their parents had. And that in itself is disturbing. And so what we have to do is we have to use our brain, because animals are imprinted, meaning by their parents, they receive imprinting and they learn how to hunt and how to live, how to survive. They learn that from their mom. Humans are imprinted. One of the flaws that we have as humans is our life becomes a product of everything we've seen. And rarely do we question what we've seen and look at it and say, okay, does this make sense? Like, does this really make sense what I have seen? Like, I've seen this situation where I've seen these fights. I've seen this bliss, this happiness. But with two humans, does this really make sense? And how do you've learned how to be a critical thinker in school? You've learned how to use a process of elimination in school. You've learned deductive reasoning in school. You've learned these things in school with math problems and, different classes. Well, we have to apply that to life. So what do I really want in this relationship? In this relationship, I want my spouse to be happy. I want my spouse to be happy. I want my spouse to feel loved. I want my spouse to feel encouraged. I want my spouse to feel like they are on the top of the mountain, like they are on top of the world, like the world is their oyster. This is what I want my spouse to feel. And if I want my spouse to feel that, and I've messed that up, what do I need to do? I need to help my spouse heal. Okay, how do humans heal? Humans heal from love, from patience, and from new action. So if there is no love, if there's resentment, a human can't heal. If there's anger and frustration, a human can't heal. If there is no patience, to where we don't give like a runway for the human, our spouse, to get their wings beneath them and to pick up some momentum so that they can fly, we don't have enough runway, then they're going to crash. If we don't have new action, then it's like reopening a wound over and over and over again. So we have to have new action. So now you know how a human heals, because you are a human and you've been hurt and you know what you need. So then we have to go down the list and we have to say, okay, if I don't trust my spouse and I'm always questioning him or her, then how does that make a person feel? It makes a person feel restricted. It makes a person feel closed in. It makes a person feel controlled. Okay, you know that. So why do we do it? We do it because we don't process the feeling on their feet. We don't walk in their shoes. We just look at it and say, hey, I'm toxic, or I'm insecure, or I'm jealous, or I'm scared of losing this person. So I want to suffocate them. I want to control them. I want to keep them. And I don't want them to leave. I don't want them to meet somebody better. I don't want them to cheat. I don't want them to have anybody else. I don't want them to have too much freedom, because I don't want them to see the world and see what's out there and realize that something is better than me. So we operate from that place of fear and that mindset of scarcity, instead of operating from a mindset of freedom, love, abundance, and becoming the best person. So the mindset should shift to say, let me be the absolute best person, so that when they go out into the world and they go on a business trip, a conference, a guy's trip, a girl's trip, and they meet other people, they compare those other people to me and they say, person doesn't add up. Like, yeah, this person's great, just met him, just sitting at the bar, just met him. Yeah, you're gonna be great, but even in this conversation, I've picked up some ignorance, I've picked up some arrogance, I've picked up some sneakiness. Like, and this is the first conversation. So what would it be like if I was with this person a year later? So now your spouse starts to put that together and they're like, okay, this is interesting. So this is a whole lesson now. Think about it. So you take that and now you go down the list. All right, I made a mistake. They need to heal. Got to give time. Got to give space. Got to give freedom. One thing we know about being humans is that when we love hard. And that when we love, the people we love always have a place in our heart. That once you truly love, you never stop loving, even if you're not in the presence of that person. So you will love from a distance. You could break up and still love somebody. And if this person would do the right thing, if this person would show change, show that they can change, if this person would show growth, show remorse, and be different, we as humans would give the person we love, the people we love, another chance. We would do that because that is how the human heart is wired. That's how the human brain is wired. The brain is wired to heal. It's wired to self-soothe. It's wired to endure. The brain is wired for endurance of tough times in every area of life, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. The brain is wired to endure, to keep pressing, to keep going. So when the brain is also fed with positive affirmation, new action, new stimuli, then it heals even faster. So this is what we have to realize and understand, that healing is always possible if you're willing to heal and change. And at the end of the day, if you can show that you can be different, your spouse is almost always open to hearing from you. Yes, there comes a point where somebody's, I'm at the end. I am absolutely at the end. But a lot of times when somebody says they're absolute at the end, they still see signs. Even in a person's apology, their spouse's apology or their ex's apology, they still see little signs. They still see little implications of insanity, of control, of narcissism, of whatever it may be. And it's like, you apologizing, but the way you're apologizing, the way you're going about this, the way you're reaching out to all my friends and family, the way you're being like assertive and controlling, like now that you decided you want to be okay, everything just has to be okay, and you're not coming at me with respect and taking time and humility. Okay, now listen, I have been guilty of this. I've been guilty of this, and I know it all too well. And a lot of men and women have been guilty of this. And it goes both ways. Guess what? There are narcissistic women and there are narcissistic men. It goes both ways, and it depends on the upbringing. It depends on the upbringing and what position we were put in. Were we put into a mindset of let me get everything I can get? Scarcity mindset of let me hoard, let me get this, let me get that. What mindset were we put in? And then also, what happened to us, and did we heal? Did we heal and grow from that? And so we come to this place to where we start to have to realize and understand, like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to evaluate this. And when you look at the root, you have to understand that you might have to uproot that. You might have to uproot those lessons you learned as a child and then redo it and replant new seeds. Plant new seeds and water those seeds and then reap from those seeds. Have a new foundation, a new tree, a new garden, a harvest from those seeds versus living in the generational curses of what your parents and their parents got started and showed you in your life. This is what we have to realize. And the work is not easy, but it's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible. And you can't feel like a hypocrite when you learn this today. I'm learning this with you today. I'm still growing today. I'm still changing today. And what we'll realize is when you grow and you change, the situation should change. But what you'll also notice is when you change, a lot of times you'll notice other people, your spouse or any area that you're changing. This is like a marriage series kind of. You'll notice that they don't change or they don't want to change. And it's almost like they got accustomed to your toxicity. It's like they got accustomed to you being dramaful. And it's almost like for a season, they'll try to pull you back into that place. Because as humans, if you're toxic, if you're toxic, I get to feel sane. But when you become healthy, it then shines a light on where I'm unhealthy. And you're toxic, but I'm also toxic. but you're just more toxic than me. So your toxicity hides or overshadows my toxicity. But when you clean up your toxins, I'm still left with mine. So now that you've decided to do the work, I now have to decide to do the work. And what you may find when you change and you grow, you may realize that you were just more toxic than me, but I'm still toxic. And if I'm not willing to change and grow, then you realize you have to go. Because you say, hey, I've changed and I've given runway. I've had love, patience, temperance, compassion, everything, and you're still not changing. So was I the problem? Was I the problem, or were we both jacked up, but I was just more of a problem or being blamed for being the problem? So this is what we have to realize. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna end it here. And right now we kind of in a little marriage series. And so this is good for the singles too. So singles, y'all get this too. And it's a little marriage series. I may make a playlist for it. And people have been asking me, Tony, can you talk more on marriage? Can you talk more on marriage? So we're going to bring in the married folk. Send this to your married folk. All couples go through this stuff. And so it's going to be relatable for every married couple. We all go through it. And I'm going to just pinpoint problems and things that I've seen in my own marriage and the marriages that I've worked with. And we just going to line them up, and we're going to get us a little runway of marriage series, things that help couples make their relationship work. So bring the married folks back in the room, and let's keep working. Hey, God bless you. Oh, classes, if you've seen this on Saturday, class is 7:30. Class is 7:30 p.m. It's called Saturday School. It's on TonyGassisAcademy.com. I'm going to put the link in the description. God bless you. We'll talk soon.